It's time for Lefties Losing It, and wowie, didn't Democrat Katie Porter lose it in spectacular fashion during an interview with CBS? She was asked some rather obvious softball questions and still managed to have a meltdown and tried to storm off the set. Let's have a look at the question that set her off in the first place and just note how unpleasant, how entitled and hypersensitive Katie Porter is throughout this interview. She really is the embodiment of the modern Democrat woman.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're saying.
In a general election? Yes.
But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't think
I feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not
correct. And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered.
I don't care. I don't care. I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation.
Oh, she wants to have a pleasant conversation, does she, with no follow-up questions? I'm sure every Republican would prefer that too, but all they get from the media is hostility and invective. And yet it's a Democrat who's having a meltdown after being asked the mildest, most obvious question. Let's see how this train wreck concludes.
And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there. And we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
reporter. I have never had to do this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end an interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
Oh, she doesn't want it on camera. Oops, it's on camera, lady, and you look like a hysterical, entitled, highly unpleasant clown. You know, these Democrats are so used to having nothing but endless adoration from the media, just one tongue bath after another, that they are outraged when a follow-up question occurs. Katie Porter wants to be the next governor of California. God help the Golden State. Now to a less angry but probably more confused Democrat. Here is Delaware Congressman Sarah McBride, a biological man identifying as a woman, creating cringe content like this.
We're barreling towards a shutdown. All my Democratic colleagues are here. I'm going to go search for my Republican colleagues. Republicans, y'all know there's a government shutdown. Republicans, anyone here? Mike Johnson in here? Let's see if some Republicans are in here. Are there any Republicans in here? Hello? Republicans? No Republicans here.
Now let's go to Portland and watch a pitiful little soy boy get his comeuppance after repeatedly abusing officers, shouting all kinds of ugly slurs. This little Antifa agitator spat in the face of an officer and was met with the full force of the law.
You guys don't belong here! Go back to the South where you belong! Get out of our state! Get out of our state! Get out of here! Get out of our state!
Good times. Now, it's often said that leftists are so afflicted with TDS that they would find a way to hate Trump even if he cured cancer. Well, former MSNBC anchor Joy Reid confirmed the same is true for her when it comes to Vice President J.D. Vance.
I can't stand J.D. Vance. Let's just be clear. There's nothing he could do. He could literally rescue my cat out of a burning building and I would still hate J.D. Vance.
He could rescue her cat from a burning building and she'd still hate him? And what about Don Lemon giggling like a deranged schoolgirl there? And let's end Lefties with proof that leftists ruin everything, even their own wedding.
Alongside their demonisation of trans people, our government and media is currently also complicit in a genocide. And I know some of you may think a wedding is not the time to think of this. Trans men are men, trans women are women, trans rights are human rights. So yeah, in short, I love Matthew, free Palestine, and trans rights are human rights. Enjoy your main.
Now, today the President met with journalists and podcasters, a number of whom have been victims of violent attacks by Antifa, including Andy No and independent journalist Brandy Cruz, who admitted to the President that she was a long-term TDS sufferer. That's Trump derangement syndrome.
I'm living proof that you can recover from TDS. I had strong Trump derangement syndrome for probably 8 years. This is one of the reasons I recovered from it. And by the way, it's much better to not have TDS. I'm happier, I'm healthier, more successful. I even think I got a little more attractive after I got rid of my Trump derangement syndrome. Yes. You know, I'm a reporter in Seattle, and frankly, I could not care any less what any of you have to say about this meeting. Could not care any less. We're not here for you. I'm not here to convince any of you that Antifa is a real thing, because if you have not come to that conclusion by now, you are never going to come to that conclusion because you don't want to see it. And you're going to go and you're going to say it's a bunch of right-wing conservative influencers who are here spinning a tale. I was one of you. I was a mainstream reporter in Seattle for 10 years. I was a TV reporter on the streets doing my job, and I was still assaulted by Antifa. So it's not about being conservative. It's about people who go there and show what they're doing. And when I saw, after all those years, that the media wouldn't be honest about what was happening, that Democratic politicians wouldn't be honest about what was happening.
Joining me now is comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein. Alex, Antifa are about to belatedly face the consequences of their lawlessness and violence. And what Brandy said there, she was addressing the media, because so many in the media continue to pretend that this group doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I mean, Rita, it's very easy to expose this group. And I just want to first start off by saying congratulations to all those independent journalists. I got to go up there, Andy No, especially a friend of mine, Samantha Hernandez. A lot of my friends are up there, too many to name, but I was just so excited that Trump gave them the platform because, what's happening with Antifa is a real thing. And I'm not calling the Democratic Socialists of America Antifa, but there's so many offshoots of these left-wing, Marxist, communist groups that don't even need a name. And people can very easily figure out how these, weird small groups are funded. And that doesn't mean when you go to a protest that every protester is paid. But when you see these protests, the people that organize them are literally paid. These are organized groups. So this isn't an accident. Antifa is not a fake thing. It's a real thing. And it is a threat to, everyday Americans. So I'm really excited that they got to go to the White House. So this is actually this is a very big deal, Rita, and especially for me, because I know a lot of those people that got to go there today.
And I'm so glad to see quite a few of them, I know them as well, who finally got a platform to speak to the media, to speak to the president, because they were victimised. They were not only victims of violence at the hands of Antifa, they were then defamed by the media and cast as far right or agitators. They were literally being victim blamed. It was just so appalling. And Andy No was a victim of that as well. Now, Alex, relations were decidedly less friendly in the Oval Office earlier in the week. Watch this clash between President Trump and a reporter.
Mr. President, when are you going to give details?
We're going to be going into New York, too.
Mr. President.
And we're going to be going in quiet. You're really obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I'm trying to ask you, what about your plans
you are
for
really
Memphis?
Obnoxious.
I'm not obnoxious, but I am asking, what are your plans for Memphis? Many people want
I'm not going to talk to you until I call on you.
What are your plans for Memphis?
Who else?
Mr.
Yeah, go
President?
ahead. I just want to.
Oh, yes, she was obnoxious, all right. But Alex, tell me about the Trump administration's efforts to crack down on crime in big cities. This is contentious. Do you think it's going to work?
You know, Rita, honestly, if you really want to know my opinion, and obviously I do have a lot of conservative, leaning opinions, but when I see the National Guard being sent to places like DC and Chicago, it makes me worried. And yes, I do think it's a necessary evil to have them there, but let's be real, martial law under Trump might be okay. But when it comes to future presidents and, future cabinet members making decisions, I don't know if I will be able to trust them putting the military in the streets. So right now, it seems like a Band-Aid for a very serious wound, and I hope it's a temporary fix. But I just hope that, future administrations will not decide to use the same tactic, because nobody wants the military on our streets. We need more police, Rita. We don't need the military. But in all honesty, it is that dangerous in Chicago and Portland and DC. So they've kind of left us no choice. But it's just, that's not the America I grew up in, having military on the streets.
Well, it's so difficult, Alex. It's so difficult, Alex, to get police officers in some of these big cities. They're Democrat-run. They've got very permissive attitudes towards crime. There's some big anti-police sentiment amongst the leadership in some of these cities. So to encourage people to risk their life and join the police force, it's a difficult task. Yeah, it's no easy answers here. Now, I know you and Charlie Kirk were very close, and you're determined to continue his good work, though you have your own style, it must be said. Let's have a look.
Know who hurt me?
What did
all
they
my
do?
Life.
What did they do? Did they bully you?
Yeah, dumb piece of
I'm sorry.
Go back to middle school where you belong.
I'm sorry that you're bullied like that. It's not fair. It was not nice of this kid to bully you. But you're a very powerful young man. I think you could use all that power. You can harness it for good. I don't know. What are you passionate?
Why don't you do something other than this bullshit on my campus?
No, this is what I do. I spread awareness. I speak to young men like you that are highly effective.
Trying to radicalize angry people.
I know. I'd like to radicalize you on my side to support Donald Trump.
I'd like to kick you in the balls. Would it make me feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To assault another man, to kick a man in the genitalia. First you asked to see my penis. Now you want to touch my penis with your foot?
Real hard.
Alex, some of these people can't be helped.
No, that guy was absolutely insane. We've been trying to get in contact with him, but let's be real, Rita. I cannot hold a candle to Charlie, and I can only do basically kind of a dollar store version of Charlie. But what was so great is that Charlie let me represent Turning Point and do that because he wanted to spread awareness, that he knew that if I imitated him, it would get more students at my events, thus helping Turning Point USA. So he was so selfless, and I cannot do 1/1,000,000th of what Charlie did. But I am going to try to go on campuses and continue to keep his legacy alive. Obviously, his legacy will never die, but I just want to do my small part. And it's an honor to be a part of Turning Point USA. And, sadly, the world is not going to be a better place without Charlie. But Turning Point is, it's growing so massively right now. Charlie would be very, very ecstatic to see the growth of Turning Point in just the last month since his terrible assassination.
Yes, his legacy, I think, is just going to grow bigger and bigger. Now, before you go, there have been media reports that Bill Belichick's days in Chapel Hill may be numbered. What's going on there, Alex? How much of this is due to the 73-year-old's relationship with 24-year-old girlfriend Jordan Hudson? Of course, he is a football coaching legend, but he comes with a lot of controversy these days.
Rita, I love when you give me a sports question. Me, as a diehard NFL fan, listen, Coach Belichick was the greatest NFL coach of all time. His dynasty with Tom Brady will never be, there will be no other team that will be able to replicate that success. But, he's getting paid a lot of money in UNC. He has a 24-year-old girlfriend that, is attractive, but she seems like she's absolutely crazy. She's on the sidelines more than the damn coordinator. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's a bad, toxic environment. And I do think that it would actually save face for UNC and Coach Belichick to at least finish the year. So I'd hate to see the mid-season fire. But you know what's really frustrating, and not a lot of people have been sharing this? Drake May, who was a former UNC Tar Heel legend who had a great game in the NFL, he told the Tar Heels not to share any of the highlights because Drake May currently plays for the Patriots. So I don't like that cattiness. You know, an old player at UNC, you know, you should still be gassing him up just because he's on the Patriots now. So I don't like that pettiness, and I think that is kind of infecting his whole entire locker room.
Alex Stein, thank you for your time. Joining me now is political advisor and commentator CJ Pearson. CJ, this week we had a Democrat politician, Jay Jones, a man who wants to be Virginia's next Attorney General. Well, he was exposed as an unhinged miscreant. These messages he sent wishing death on a Republican colleague, wishing death on his Republican colleagues' children. And yet we've heard very little coverage of this from the mainstream media. The New York Times hasn't touched it. We've heard nothing from plenty of media outlets, including ABC, PBS, CBS, and NBC devoted an entire 63 seconds to the story, CJ.
The coverage has been entirely scant, but also so has the condemnation from his fellow Democratic colleagues. This is someone that should not just be ashamed of himself, but should also be called on to withdraw from this race immediately. You know, it's exactly why I reject the entire premise and or narrative that this is a both sides issue when it comes to political violence, because the bullets in this country are only coming from left to right. This is someone who, even in private messages, it doesn't actually even matter, actively wish and imagine for the death of his political opponents, not just them, but also their children. It's disgusting. It's absolutely despicable, and it deserves bipartisan condemnation. But yet we have yet to hear it because the Democrats are more concerned about their political benefit than they are about actually doing what's right.
You're so right. The link between violent rhetoric and violence from the left is undeniable at this point. We've had Charlie Kirk's assassination. We've had multiple attempts against Donald Trump. Going back a few years, there was Steve Scalise. We've had Brett Kavanaugh, attempted assassination attempt there. All leftist activists, and yet this rhetoric does not stop. And despite what this guy is guilty of, a Democratic committee released a statement saying, "We are lined up, 10 toes down, ready to organise, mobilise and deliver voters for Jay and our entire Democratic ticket." So that's been the response from the Democrats. Now, CJ, Katie Porter, another Democrat who wants to be California Governor, her car crash interview with CBS has gone viral.
And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered our follow-ups.
I don't care.
God help California if that's the next governor. She can't handle an interview with Julie Watts on CBS, CJ. How's she ever going to handle an actual hostile interview?
Yeah, you're exactly right. God help California. But let's also just break down like the reason she had that breakdown, right? It's because the Democrats never face tough questions. They never face actual challenging questioning from those, in the liberal media. And so she had no idea how to respond. But the question that she even was asked was not even all that challenging. It was simply, a little bit of friendly pushback from her friends at CBS. And so, you're exactly right. If you can't even ask tough questions, answer tough questions from a journalist that probably is inclined to support you and be friendly to you, how are we going to lead an entire state? It just actually doesn't make any sense. But I think what we saw in that interview is entirely disqualifying. And I hope, again, the Democrats may not be calling on Jay Jones to drop out, but I see a lot of folks calling on Katie Porter to exit the race because of that incredibly poor performance she put on in that interview.
Oh, it was bad, and we've got more of it in Lefties. She was floundering on the simplest question, like, well, 40% of Californians voted for Donald Trump. How are you going to appeal to those voters? That was what set her off. It is hardly a hostile or unexpected question. It really was quite a bizarre performance, I've got to say. Now, let's check in with the mayor of crime-riddled Chicago, Brandon Johnson, who thinks Republicans want a rematch of the Civil War.
The right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to sit in right now, because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America.
That's right.
He's more interested in giving billions of dollars to other nations, while farmers in urban cities around this country are literally being destabilized.
I'm lost for words. CJ, how does one respond to that? It's just, does he actually knows what happened in the Civil War? I think he needs a bit of a history lesson.
I think he needs very much a history lesson, because it's not Republicans who want a civil war, just as it wasn't just a few years ago when the actual Civil War happened. It was Democrats who waged that war. But what I would remind him of is the fact that Democrats lost that war. So if anyone doesn't want a civil war, it should be his very party, right? But what he should actually be concerning himself with is the Civil War happening in his very own city, in the city of Chicago, between the Crips and the Bloods and the gangster disciples, right? Like, that is what we're actually trying to combat. President Trump is trying to bring law and order to the city of Chicago. He's actually trying to save Black lives, because on the Republican Party side, we don't actually use Black Lives Matter as some type of tagline or some bumper sticker. We actually mean it. Black lives do indeed matter. And what's happening in the city of Chicago is that Black lives are disproportionately being taken away because of the soft on crime policies of mayors just like Brandon Johnson. And so, of course, it takes a bold and decisive leader like President Trump to step in. That's exactly what he's doing. And I got to tell you, when I talk to people in Chicago, when I actually go to the city of Chicago, people are saying we need a leader to step in, and President Trump is that leader.
Now, CJ, former FBI Director James Comey has pled not guilty overnight to allegations that he lied to Congress. The Democrats and their propaganda arm, the mainstream media, are claiming this entire prosecution is politically motivated and should be dismissed. But CJ, we've heard it time and time again, no one is above the law.
No one is above the law. You're exactly right, Rita. But what I've also heard from a lot of these Democrats is that this sets a dangerous precedent. Let's talk about who actually set this precedent, Rita. Right? It was President Joe Biden, his weaponized woke DOJ that went after every single Republican that dared to cross that administration. I'm talking about Steve Bannon. I'm talking about Peter Navarro. I'm talking about so many more people who were thrown into the gulag because simply they had the audacity to stand up for what they believe in and to support the America First agenda and the America First movement. And so, these tears are crocodile ones. I actually don't believe them at all. And I think that it's like long past due that the left actually gets their same treatment. And maybe that's when they'll realize that, when the shoe's on the other foot, it doesn't feel so good. But I'm not saying that this is even political. This is actually a real issue. If James Comey did lie before Congress, he should be held accountable, because as you said, no one is above the law. I don't care if you're an FBI director or Clinton, whoever you may be. If you break the law in this country, this DOJ will hold you accountable.
Well, let's hope so, because for too long, Republicans have been guilty of pointing out how Democrats have broken the law, how they have weaponized institutions, but there really hasn't been consequences. So hopefully there will actually be some real consequences for people who have been complicit in that sort of behaviour. Now, this is a disturbing scene on the second anniversary of the October 7 attacks. Let's have a look at what was happening in New York City.
Our work is not done. We must show up. We must show up. Stronger than we did the first October 7th.
CJ, they chanted there, we will show up stronger than we did the first October 7. Congressman Brandon Gill has posted this about that footage you've just seen. He said importing Islamic terrorists into America is suicidal. They all need to be deported. CJ, the people wanting peaceful Palestine don't seem to be too happy that President Trump is negotiating just that.
No, it's absolutely disgusting, and all those people in that video should be deported. There is no place in this country for people who are guests to this nation to be siding with a terrorist organization like Hamas. None at all. But what I'll tell you is that, breaking news just a few hours ago, we've seen President Trump actually bring Hamas and Israel to the table, and they have signed a ceasefire agreement. The first phase of it will quickly be taking effect. And so I got to tell you, blessed be the peacemakers, and President Trump is just that. And so, while there are a lot of people apparently who don't want peace, this president has been completely laser focused on achieving it. And I think that we are just inches away from it. And I don't think President Trump will get much credit from it from the left, but I think that if anyone deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, if Barack Obama can get a Nobel Peace Prize, then President Trump has certainly earned his.
Well, yeah, Barack basically got his for being elected. There was not much peace that he engineered for what I could see. Now, before you go, let's have a look at the social media output of the Department of Homeland Security. We are certainly in a new era. CJ, that makes me want to apply for a job with ICE.
I think you're exactly right. And I got to tell you, Rita, this is exactly what I voted for. But I actually want to take a moment to, appreciate the people behind it. Folks like my friends, Isabel Redfield, Micah Bach, who are doing all this incredible work without pay right now because of the Schumer shutdown. And so these people are just patriots. They're continuing to post, continuing to rally the troops, continuing to generate tens of thousands of ICE applicants because of the incredible work they're doing. And God bless them for it, because an America is not an America without secure borders, and they're working every single day to achieve that truth.
CJ Pearson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.